The arrival of Marcus Jennings. The luxury Emerald Heights Hotel was a gleaming beacon of opulence in the heart of the city. Its polished glass facade sparkled in the morning sun, standing tall as a symbol of success. Inside, the lobby was alive with activity. Bellhops rushed to assist guests, receptionists greeted visitors with warm smiles, and the sound of suitcases rolling over marble floors filled the air. Marcus Jennings, a man in his early 50s, stepped through the revolving doors. He was dressed modestly, wearing a simple button-down shirt, khaki pants, and a worn leather jacket. To the casual observer, he might have seemed like any other middle-class traveler. But Marcus was far from ordinary. He was the owner of the Emerald Heights Hotel, a self-made man who had turned his dreams into reality through grit, determination, and relentless hard work. Marcus had decided to visit this property unannounced, a practice he had adopted over the years. He believed it was the best way to truly understand the day-to-day operations and to see how his employees treated people when they didn't know the boss was watching. This wasn't just a hotel to him. It was a testament to his journey from poverty to success. As Marcus entered, he paused to take in the grandeur of the lobby. The high ceilings, crystal chandeliers, and lush greenery adorning the space reminded him of how far he had come. However, his eyes weren't here to admire the decor. He focused instead on the staff, watching their interactions with guests, and noting the overall atmosphere. Everything seemed to be running smoothly, but Marcus had learned to look deeper. Near the reception desk, he noticed a couple arguing quietly over a booking error. The receptionist, a young man named Caleb, handled the situation with professionalism and tact, quickly resolving the issue. Marcus nodded approvingly to himself. Caleb had potential. He strolled through the lobby, glancing at the various amenities on display: a grand piano, a small art gallery featuring local artists, and a cozy cafe. He was careful not to draw attention to himself. He picked up a brochure about the hotel spa, pretending to read it while discreetly observing his surroundings. Then came the interruption. "Excuse me, sir," a voice said from behind him. Marcus turned to see a sharply dressed man in a tailored suit standing there. His name tag read Ethan, and beneath it was the title manager. Ethan appeared to be in his early 40s, with a polished demeanor and an air of authority. However, his tone was far from welcoming. There was a subtle edge to it, a mix of politeness and suspicion. "Yes," Marcus responded calmly. "Can I help you with something?" Ethan asked, his eyes scanning Marcus from head to toe as though evaluating his worth. "No, thank you. I'm just looking around," Marcus replied evenly. Ethan frowned slightly, the polite mask slipping just a bit. "Are you a guest here?" "Not today," Marcus answered, keeping his tone neutral. Ethan's expression hardened. "Sir, this is a private property. If you're not a guest or conducting business, I'll have to ask you to leave." The words hung in the air, sharp and dismissive. Marcus raised an eyebrow, intrigued by how quickly Ethan had jumped to conclusions. He didn't argue. Instead, he tilted his head slightly and asked, "Why would I need to leave? I'm not bothering anyone." Ethan crossed his arms, his posture stiff and unyielding. "We have policies to ensure the safety and comfort of our guests. If you're not staying here, I'm afraid you can't just wander around." The conversation had started to attract attention. A few guests glanced over curiously, sensing the tension. Behind the reception desk, Caleb exchanged uncertain looks with another employee. Marcus kept his composure. "And what if I refuse?" he asked, testing the waters. Ethan's face flushed slightly, but he remained firm. "Then I'll have to call security." At that moment, a familiar voice cut through the air. "Mr. Jennings." Both men turned to see Lisa, the hotel's operations director, approaching quickly. She was a sharp, efficient woman in her mid-30s who had worked closely with Marcus for years. Her expression shifted from surprise to alarm as she noticed the tension between Marcus and Ethan. "Good morning, Lisa," Marcus said warmly. Lisa's eyes flicked between Marcus and Ethan, piecing together the situation. Her smile faltered slightly, replaced by a look of concern. "Is everything all right?" Ethan, still oblivious, asked coldly, "You know this gentleman?" Lisa's expression turned serious. "Of course I know him. This is Marcus Jennings." Ethan's confusion deepened. "And who is Marcus Jennings?" Lisa's eyes widened, and she hesitated, as though struggling to believe what she was hearing. "He's the owner of the Emerald Heights." Ethan's face went pale. The color drained from his cheeks as the weight of her words sank in. The owner," he stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. "Yes," Lisa said firmly. "He built this hotel. Everything you see here exists because of him." Marcus watched Ethan carefully, noting the manager's discomfort and sudden realization. Ethan's mouth opened and closed as he struggled to find the right words. I didn't realize." "No, you didn't," Marcus said calmly but firmly. "But you made a lot of assumptions, didn't you?" Ethan stammered. "I'm so sorry, sir. I didn't mean." Marcus held up a hand, cutting him off. "Let's not pretend. You saw a black man standing in your lobby, dressed casually, and you assumed I didn't belong here. That's the truth, isn't it?" Ethan's silence spoke volumes. The entire lobby seemed to hold its breath. Employees behind the desk looked on, wide-eyed, while a few guests discreetly observed the scene. Marcus let the silence linger for a moment before continuing. "This is why I visit unannounced," Marcus said. "To see how my staff treats people when they think no one important is watching. And today, you failed that test." Ethan's shoulders slumped, and he looked down, unable to meet Marcus's gaze. "I'm sorry, Mr. Jennings. I made a mistake. It won't happen again." Marcus studied him for a moment before responding. "You're right. It won't. You're suspended, effective immediately. Take this time to reflect on your actions. If you want to keep your job, you'll need to prove to me that you've learned from this." Ethan nodded meekly, his voice barely audible. "I understand." Without another word, he turned and walked away, his head hanging low. The tension in the lobby slowly dissipated, replaced by an air of quiet relief. Lisa sighed, her expression a mix of apology and frustration. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Jennings. This isn't how we operate," she said. "I know, Lisa. That's why you're here, to help ensure it doesn't happen again," Marcus replied. For the rest of the day, Marcus continued his inspection, speaking with staff and observing their interactions with guests. Most of the employees were courteous and professional, which reassured him. However, Ethan's behavior lingered in his mind, a stark reminder of the prejudices that still existed. As Marcus left the hotel that evening, he reflected on the day's events. He had faced discrimination before, but it never got easier. This time, though, it had happened in his own space, a place he had built with his own hands and vision. Despite the disappointment, Marcus knew he had an opportunity to turn the incident into a teaching moment. He hoped Ethan would use this experience to grow and become a better person. After all, Marcus believed in second chances, when they were truly earned. The story would continue tomorrow, but for now, Marcus returned home, determined to uphold the values that had brought him this far. The Emerald Heights Hotel was more than just a business to him. It was a reflection of his journey, and he wouldn't let anyone tarnish it. Confronting the culture. The following morning, Marcus Jennings sat in his spacious office overlooking the bustling cityscape. The warm sunlight filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows, but it did little to lift his mood. The events of the previous day weighed heavily on his mind, not because of the disrespect he had faced personally. He had grown used to that over the years, but because of what it revealed about the culture at the Emerald Heights Hotel. Marcus had always prided himself on fostering an inclusive and respectful work environment. His success wasn't just built on business acumen. It was built on the belief that every person, regardless of their background, deserved to be treated with dignity. Yesterday's encounter with Ethan challenged that belief and left Marcus questioning whether the values he cherished had been lost in the day-to-day operations of his hotel. Picking up the phone, Marcus called Lisa, the operations director. She answered almost immediately, her voice brisk and professional. "Good morning, Mr. Jennings." "Lisa, can you meet me in the conference room in 15 minutes? I want to discuss what happened yesterday and what we're going to do about it." "Yes, sir. I'll be there," she replied without hesitation. After hanging up, Marcus opened his laptop and began drafting an email to the hotel's management team. The subject line read, "Mandatory staff meeting, cultural reset." He kept the message short but firm, informing everyone that their presence was required at a meeting later that afternoon. Marcus wasn't just interested in addressing Ethan's behavior. He wanted to get to the root of the problem. 15 minutes later, Lisa walked into the conference room, a folder of documents tucked under her arm. Her expression was serious, but there was a hint of nervousness in her eyes. "Good morning, Mr. Jennings," she greeted as she took a seat. "Good morning, Lisa," Marcus replied, gesturing for her to sit down. "I've been thinking about what happened yesterday. It wasn't just about Ethan's actions. It was about what those actions represent. I want to talk about the culture here at Emerald Heights." Lisa nodded, her expression thoughtful. "I agree. Ethan's behavior was unacceptable, but it's also a symptom of a larger issue. If he felt comfortable treating a guest, or what he thought was a guest, that way, it means we have work to do." "Exactly," Marcus said, leaning forward. "I built this hotel on the principle that every person who walks through those doors is treated with respect. That applies to guests, employees, and everyone in between. But if that's not happening, then we're failing." Lisa opened her folder and spread out a few documents on the table. "I've been reviewing some feedback from guests and staff. For the most part, people are happy with their experiences here. But there have been a few complaints, minor issues that, when put together, paint a picture of something deeper. A guest felt ignored at check-in because they didn't look the part. A housekeeper reported feeling overlooked by management when they raised a concern. It's not widespread, but it's enough to warrant attention." Marcus listened carefully, his jaw tightening. "It starts at the top," he said. "If managers like Ethan are setting the wrong example, that attitude trickles down. We need to address this head-on." Lisa hesitated before speaking. "Do you think Ethan should stay on? He's been here for 3 years, and this is the first time something like this has come to light. But it was a serious lapse in judgment." "I've thought about that," Marcus said, his tone measured. "Everyone deserves a chance to grow. Ethan's behavior was unacceptable, but I believe in second chances, if they're earned. He's suspended for now, and before he comes back, he'll need to undergo training and prove he's willing to change." Lisa nodded. "That's fair. What about the rest of the staff?" "That's why I called this meeting," Marcus replied. "We're going to implement mandatory training for everyone. Bias awareness, customer service, inclusion. But it can't stop there. Training is just the first step. We need to create a culture where these values are lived every day, not just taught in a seminar." Lisa smiled faintly. "I can see why this hotel is such a success. You care deeply about these things." Marcus chuckled softly. "It's personal for me, Lisa. I've been on the receiving end of this kind of treatment too many times. I won't let it happen under my watch. Not here, not anywhere." As the meeting progressed, Marcus and Lisa outlined a plan to address the cultural issues within the hotel. By the time they finished, they had a clear strategy: mandatory training for all employees, regular feedback sessions, and a revamped code of conduct that emphasized respect and inclusion. That afternoon, the conference room was packed with managers, department heads, and key staff members. Marcus stood at the head of the room, his presence commanding but approachable. He didn't often call all-hands meetings, so the attendees knew this was important. "Thank you all for coming," Marcus began, his voice steady but firm. "I'm sure many of you have heard about what happened yesterday. Let me start by saying this. The behavior I witnessed does not reflect the values of this hotel or this company. but the fact that it happened at all means we need to take a hard look at ourselves. The room was silent, the weight of his words hanging heavily in the air. Marcus continued, "This hotel was built on the belief that every person deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. That applies to our guests, our staff, and anyone who walks through these doors. Yesterday, I saw that belief being undermined, and I won't stand for it." He glanced around the room, making eye contact with several attendees. "This is a wake-up call for all of us. It's not enough to say we value respect and inclusion. We have to live it. That's why, starting today, we're implementing changes. Every employee, from management to entry level, will undergo mandatory training on bias, inclusion, and customer service. We'll also be holding regular feedback sessions to ensure we're living up to our values." Marcus paused, letting his words sink in. "I know this might feel like a lot, but I need you to understand something. This isn't about punishment. It's about growth. We all have blind spots, and the only way to address them is to confront them head-on. This is an opportunity for us to become better, not just as a hotel, but as individuals." Lisa stepped forward, distributing packets to the attendees. "These are the details of the training sessions, along with a revised code of conduct. Please review them carefully and share them with your teams." As the meeting wrapped up, Marcus looked out at the group, his voice softening. "I built this hotel to be a place where everyone feels welcome. But it's not just my responsibility. It's ours. Together, we can make this a place we're all proud of." The room erupted into applause, the energy shifting from somber to hopeful. Marcus felt a spark of optimism. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but he believed in the potential for change. As the staff filtered out of the room, Lisa turned to him with a smile. "You've inspired them, Marcus. This is the start of something better." Marcus nodded, his determination renewed. "It has to be. This is just the beginning." Ethan's Crossroads. Ethan Maxwell sat alone in his small, tastefully decorated apartment, the city lights casting long shadows through the floor-to-ceiling windows. His suit jacket was draped over the back of his chair, and his tie lay crumpled on the table beside an untouched glass of whiskey. He stared at his laptop screen, rereading Marcus Jennings's email for what felt like the 100th time. The words "suspended effective immediately" glared at him like a neon sign. Marcus's calm but firm voice replayed in his head. "You made a lot of assumptions, didn't you?" Ethan winced at the memory, shame, and regret gnawing at him. He had spent years climbing the ladder of the hospitality industry, and now it felt as though everything he had worked for was slipping through his fingers. He leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his neatly combed hair. How had he let this happen? He prided himself on professionalism, yet he had made a snap judgment, a catastrophic one, that had not only embarrassed him, but also revealed a side of himself he didn't want to acknowledge. A personal reckoning. Ethan's thoughts drifted back to his childhood. He had grown up in a small, predominantly white town where diversity was rare and prejudices were passed down like family heirlooms. He remembered his father's gruff voice warning him to stick to his kind, and the subtle, unspoken rules that governed their interactions with the few people of color in their community. Ethan had never questioned it back then. It was just the way things were. But life in the city had challenged those old notions. He had worked alongside people from all walks of life, many of whom had become close friends. Ethan liked to think he had moved past the biases of his upbringing, but yesterday had shattered that illusion. The way he had treated Marcus was a stark reminder that old habits and prejudices could linger, lurking beneath the surface. He closed his laptop and stood, pacing the room. He couldn't undo what he had done, but he could choose how to respond. Marcus's email had included a lifeline, the opportunity to attend bias awareness training and prove his willingness to change. Ethan knew this wasn't just about keeping his job. It was about becoming a better person. A humbling encounter. The next morning, Ethan decided to take a walk. The crisp autumn air was refreshing, and the bustling city streets provided a welcome distraction. As he strolled through a nearby park, he spotted an elderly black man sitting on a bench, feeding the pigeons. The man's face was lined with age, but his eyes sparkled with warmth and wisdom. Ethan hesitated before approaching, unsure why he felt drawn to the stranger. Perhaps it was a need to unburden himself, or perhaps he was seeking perspective. Gathering his courage, he sat on the opposite end of the bench. "Good morning," Ethan said politely. The man glanced at him and nodded. "Good morning, son." They sat in silence for a few moments, watching the pigeons flutter around the crumbs scattered on the ground. Finally, Ethan spoke. "Can I ask you something?" The man turned to him, raising an eyebrow. "Sure. What's on your mind?" Ethan hesitated, then said, "Have you ever been judged unfairly, treated differently because of how you look?" The man let out a soft chuckle. "Oh, plenty of times. Comes with the territory when you look like me. But I've learned not to let it define me." Ethan nodded slowly. "I think I might have done that to someone recently. Judged them unfairly, I mean. And it's eating at me." The man studied him for a moment, his gaze penetrating but not unkind. "The fact that it's eating at you is a good sign. Means you've got a conscience. The real question is, what are you going to do about it?" "I don't know," Ethan admitted. "I've been given a second chance, but I'm not sure where to start." The man smiled faintly. "Start by listening. You'd be surprised how much you can learn when you open your ears and close your mouth. And remember, change doesn't happen overnight. It's a process, but it's worth it." Ethan thanked the man and walked away, feeling a little lighter. The conversation had been brief, but it left him with a sense of direction. He couldn't erase the past, but he could take steps toward a better future. The training session. A week later, Ethan found himself in a brightly lit conference room, seated among a dozen other employees from the Emerald Heights Hotel. The training session on bias and inclusion was led by a dynamic facilitator named Dr. Rachel Kim, whose no-nonsense approach immediately commanded attention. "Let's start with an exercise," Dr. Kim said, handing out blank sheets of paper. "Write down the first 3 words that come to mind when you think of the word guest." Ethan stared at the paper, his pen hovering hesitantly. He wrote, "Wealthy, polite, businesslike." As Dr. Kim collected the papers and read some of the responses aloud, Ethan realized how narrow his perspective had been. "Notice a pattern?" Dr. Kim asked. "Most of you described guests in ways that align with a certain image, someone affluent, well-dressed, and unproblematic. But let me ask you this. What about the family traveling on a budget? Or the elderly couple who might not fit that polished image? Are they any less deserving of respect?" The room fell silent as her words sank in. Dr. Kim went on to discuss implicit bias, sharing real-world examples and encouraging the group to reflect on their own experiences. Ethan listened intently, his earlier defensiveness giving way to curiosity and introspection. For the first time, he began to understand how deeply ingrained biases could shape behavior, often without conscious awareness. A letter to Marcus. That evening, Ethan sat at his desk, pen in hand. He had decided to write a letter to Marcus, not an email, but a handwritten note that conveyed his sincerity. He wanted to apologize not only for his actions, but also for the assumptions that had led to them. "Dear Mr. Jennings, I want to start by expressing my deepest apologies for the way I treated you. My behavior was inexcusable, and I take full responsibility for it. I made a snap judgment based on appearances, and in doing so, I failed not only you, but also the values this hotel stands for. The training sessions have been an eye-opening experience for me. They'd forced me to confront biases I didn't even realize I had. I understand now that change requires more than words. It requires action. I am committed to doing the work necessary to become a better person and a better manager. Thank you for giving me a second chance. I hope to earn back your trust and demonstrate that I am capable of living up to the standards you expect from your team. Sincerely, Ethan Maxwell." As he sealed the envelope, Ethan felt a sense of relief. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but he was ready to face it. For the first time in years, he felt truly hopeful about his ability to grow. A new beginning. The next morning, Ethan delivered the letter to Marcus's assistant and returned to the hotel's training sessions with renewed determination. He had a long way to go, but he was willing to put in the effort. Marcus's willingness to give him another chance was more than just an act of mercy. It was a challenge, and Ethan was determined to rise to it. Marcus's vision for the future. The bright sunlight of the morning poured through the glass walls of Marcus Jennings's private office, illuminating the awards, family photos, and framed newspaper articles that told the story of his journey. But Marcus wasn't focused on these symbols of success. His eyes were fixed on the letter that lay open on his desk, a handwritten apology from Ethan Maxwell. Marcus leaned back in his chair, rereading the words. The sincerity in Ethan's note was clear, and Marcus appreciated the effort it took for someone like Ethan to confront their mistakes so directly. Yet, as much as he valued the apology, Marcus knew that words alone couldn't rebuild trust or repair the culture of the hotel. Action was required, not just from Ethan, but from the entire organization. He tapped a pen against the desk thoughtfully. Yesterday's staff meeting had been a step in the right direction, but it wasn't enough. If the Emerald Heights Hotel was to truly embody the values of respect, inclusion, and excellence, the change needed to be systemic. It had to permeate every level of the organization, from the top executives to the housekeeping staff. A bold plan. Marcus picked up the phone and called Lisa, the operations director. "Lisa, can you meet me in my office? I've been thinking about the next steps." "I'll be there in 5 minutes," Lisa replied. True to her word, Lisa arrived promptly, carrying her ever-present tablet. She took a seat across from Marcus, her expression attentive. "What's on your mind, Mr. Jennings?" Marcus gestured to Ethan's letter. "I've been thinking about this, about how we can use this moment not just to address what went wrong, but to create something better. We need a bold plan to ensure this hotel becomes a leader in inclusivity and respect." Lisa nodded. "I agree. The training sessions are a start, but we'll need more than that to create lasting change." Marcus leaned forward, his hands clasped. "I want to launch an initiative, something comprehensive that goes beyond the walls of this hotel. We'll call it the Emerald Values Program. It will focus on 3 pillars: training, accountability, and community engagement." Lisa's eyes lit up. "Tell me more." The Emerald Values Program. Marcus outlined his vision for the initiative, his passion evident in every word. Training. The mandatory sessions on bias awareness and inclusion would be expanded into a continuous learning program. Employees would participate in quarterly workshops, team-building exercises, and guest speaker events featuring leaders in diversity and inclusion. Accountability. A new feedback system would be implemented, allowing employees and guests to report incidents of bias or unprofessional behavior anonymously. These reports would be reviewed by a dedicated committee, and appropriate action would be taken to address concerns. Community engagement. The hotel would partner with local organizations to host events, mentorship programs, and job fairs aimed at empowering underserved communities. Employees would be encouraged to volunteer, and the hotel would sponsor scholarships for young people pursuing careers in hospitality. "This isn't just about avoiding incidents like what happened with Ethan," Marcus said. "It's about setting a new standard, one that reflects the best of who we are and who we can be." Lisa was visibly impressed. "This is ambitious, but it's exactly what we need. I'll start putting together a team to manage the program." Conversations that matter. Later that day, Marcus scheduled one-on-one meetings with several employees, starting with Caleb, the young receptionist he had observed during his undercover visit. Caleb walked into Marcus's office looking slightly nervous but eager. "Caleb, thank you for taking the time to meet with me," Marcus said, gesturing for him to sit. "I wanted to talk to you about what I saw the other day. You handled a difficult situation with a guest remarkably well. I was impressed." Caleb's face lit up. "Thank you, sir. That means a lot coming from you." Marcus leaned forward. "Tell me, Caleb, how do you feel about the culture here? Do you feel supported? Respected?" Caleb hesitated, clearly choosing his words carefully. "For the most part, yes. But there are times when I feel like some people don't take me seriously because I'm young, or because I'm the only person of color at the front desk." Marcus nodded, his expression serious. "I appreciate your honesty. That's exactly why we're making changes. I want you to feel like you belong here and that your contributions are valued." They spoke for another 20 minutes, with Caleb sharing his experiences and ideas for improvement. By the end of the meeting, Marcus felt a renewed sense of purpose. Caleb wasn't just an employee. He was a partner in the journey to create a better workplace. Ethan's return. The next week, Ethan Maxwell returned to the hotel. His suspension lifted after completing the required training sessions. He had spent the time reflecting deeply on his actions and their consequences. Walking through the lobby, he felt a mix of anxiety and determination. He wanted to prove he could change, not just to Marcus but to himself. Marcus met with Ethan privately, the atmosphere between them tense but respectful. "Ethan," Marcus began, "I've read your letter, and I appreciate your willingness to acknowledge your mistakes. But this isn't just about an apology. It's about what happens next." "I understand, sir," Ethan replied. "I want to do better. I'm committed to making this right." Marcus studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Good. You're being reinstated, but there are conditions. First, you'll participate in the Emerald Values program alongside the rest of the staff. Second, I expect you to take an active role in mentoring your team and fostering the culture we're building here. Are you ready for that responsibility?" "Yes, I am," Ethan said firmly. "Then let's get to work," Marcus said, extending his hand. Ethan shook it, feeling a sense of relief and resolve. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but he was determined to rise to the challenge. Building bridges. In the weeks that followed, the Emerald Values program began to take shape. Employees embraced the training sessions, and the feedback system encouraged open communication. The hotel's first community engagement event, a career workshop for young adults, was a resounding success, drawing praise from attendees and local media. Ethan, true to his word, became an active participant in the transformation. He led team meetings, shared his experiences, and worked to rebuild trust with his colleagues. Marcus kept a close eye on his progress, noting the genuine effort Ethan was putting into his role. For Marcus, the changes at the hotel were deeply rewarding. Walking through the lobby one afternoon, he saw Caleb chatting with a guest, his confidence shining. He saw a housekeeping supervisor discussing ideas with her team, their laughter filling the air. He saw Ethan helping a new employee navigate a tricky situation with grace and patience. This was the Emerald Heights hotel Marcus had always envisioned, a place where everyone felt valued, respected, and empowered. But Marcus knew the work was far from over. Culture wasn't something you built once, it was something you nurtured every day. As he stood in the lobby, watching the staff and guests go about their day, Marcus smiled. This was just the beginning. Together, they were building a legacy, not just of success, but of humanity. And that, Marcus thought, was worth every effort. The ripple effect of change. The Emerald Heights Hotel buzzed with a renewed energy. Guests moved through the grand lobby, some pausing to admire the modern art installations or enjoy the live pianist near the cafe. Employees, now more aware of their purpose and united by the Emerald Values program, moved with a confidence that reflected a shared mission: to make the hotel a place of respect, inclusion, and excellence. Marcus Jennings watched it all unfold from a quiet corner of the lobby, a coffee in hand. He felt a sense of pride but also caution. Change was a delicate process. The initial excitement was promising, but the real challenge lay in maintaining momentum and ensuring the lessons took root. Ethan's new approach. In a private office on the second floor, Ethan Maxwell prepared for his weekly team meeting. The air of authority that had once been a source of pride now felt different, less about command and more about connection. He wanted to rebuild trust with his team and demonstrate that he wasn't the same man who had judged Marcus based on appearances. The meeting room filled quickly, employees greeting each other with a casual camaraderie that Ethan noticed with relief. These weren't just colleagues. They were a team, and he was determined to treat them as such. "Good morning, everyone," Ethan began, his voice steady but humble. "Before we dive into today's agenda, I want to take a moment to address something important." The room fell silent, curious eyes on him. "I want to thank you all for your patience with me over the past few weeks. I've had to take a hard look at myself, and I've learned a lot. I realize I didn't always lead in a way that reflected the values we're building here. That's going to change. I'm committed to being a better manager and a better person." One of the receptionists, a young woman named Mia, raised her hand. "Mr. Maxwell, I've noticed a difference already. You've been more approachable, and it's made a huge difference for us at the front desk." Ethan nodded, his chest swelling with a mix of gratitude and determination. "Thank you, Mia. I'm still learning, but I promise to keep working at it. And I want all of you to hold me accountable. If there's ever something I can do better, I want to hear it." The meeting continued, but the tone had shifted. The team felt closer, more aligned. Ethan left the room with a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. Marcus's quiet observation. Later that afternoon, Marcus joined Lisa for a walkthrough of the hotel. They moved from the bustling kitchen to the quiet housekeeping offices, stopping to chat with employees and check on the implementation of the new programs. Everywhere they went, they saw signs of progress. A new suggestion box overflowing with ideas, employees collaborating more openly, and even guests commenting on the improved atmosphere. At one point, they stopped by the cafe, where Caleb was assisting an elderly couple with their afternoon tea. The couple, clearly charmed by Caleb's warm demeanor, thanked him profusely as he walked away. "Caleb's really thriving," Lisa noted as they watched from a distance. "He is," Marcus agreed. "It's amazing what people can achieve when they feel valued." As they continued their tour, Lisa brought up a recent piece of feedback. "We've been getting positive reviews about the training sessions. Employees are saying they feel more confident handling situations they might have avoided before." "That's exactly what we want," Marcus said. "It's not just about preventing issues. It's about empowering people to create a better environment for everyone." A test of resolve. That evening, a test of the new culture came unexpectedly. The high-profile guest, an international businessman known for his wealth and arrogance, arrived with an entourage. His demands were immediate and unrelenting. He wanted a suite that wasn't available, demanded the removal of another guest reservation, and berated the staff when things didn't go his way. Ethan, notified of the escalating situation, hurried to the lobby. He found the businessman shouting at Caleb, who was trying to remain calm but looked visibly shaken. "Excuse me, sir," Ethan interjected, stepping between Caleb and the guest. "How can I assist you?" The businessman turned his ire on Ethan, demanding immediate compliance with his unreasonable requests. Ethan listened patiently, his demeanor calm but firm. "I understand your concerns, sir," Ethan said after the man finished. "But we have policies in place to ensure fairness and respect for all our guests. While I can't move another guest out of their reservation, I'd be happy to explore other options to make your stay as comfortable as possible." The businessman bristled but seemed to realize he wouldn't get his way. After a moment, he huffed and said, "Fine. Just make sure I'm not disturbed." Ethan nodded, maintaining his professionalism. "Of course. If there's anything else you need, please don't hesitate to let us know." As the businessman retreated to his suite, Caleb looked at Ethan with wide eyes. "Thank you, Mr. Maxwell. I didn't know how to handle them." "You did fine, Caleb," Ethan said. "Remember, you're not alone in this. We're a team, and we've got each other's backs." Celebrating progress. The next morning, Marcus called a meeting with the management team. He wanted to celebrate the progress they'd made while also emphasizing the importance of staying vigilant. "As you all know, this journey is far from over," Marcus began, "but I want to acknowledge how far we've come. The culture here is shifting, and it's because of the effort each of you has put in." He turned to Ethan. "I heard about how you handled the situation with the businessman last night. That's exactly the kind of leadership we need." Ethan nodded, a mix of pride and humility in his expression. "Thank you, sir. It's a team effort." Marcus continued, "The Emerald Values Program is just the beginning. It's up to us to keep building on this foundation. Let's make sure this hotel remains a place where everyone, guests and employees alike, feels respected and valued." The room erupted into applause, the energy palpable. For the first time, Marcus felt that his vision for the hotel was truly within reach. The changes weren't just superficial, they were becoming part of the fabric of the Emerald Heights Hotel. Looking ahead. As the day wound down, Marcus sat in his office, reflecting on the past weeks. The journey had been challenging, but the progress was undeniable. Ethan's transformation, the staff's renewed commitment, and the positive feedback from guests all pointed to a brighter future. But Marcus knew this wasn't the end. Culture was a living, breathing entity, and it required constant care. He resolved to remain vigilant, to listen, and to lead by example. Looking out at the city skyline, Marcus allowed himself a moment of quiet satisfaction. The Emerald Heights Hotel was more than just a business. It was a symbol of what was possible when people came together to create something better. And for Marcus, that was worth every effort. A legacy of change. Marcus Jennings stood in the middle of the grand ballroom at the Emerald Heights Hotel, where a special event was taking place. The chandeliers sparkled overhead, and soft music filled the air as employees, guests, and community leaders mingled. Tonight was the culmination of months of hard work, a celebration of the Emerald Values Program, and the positive transformation it had sparked throughout the hotel. Marcus surveyed the room with a quiet pride. The staff had gone above and beyond to make the evening memorable. From the impeccable service to the elegant decorations, this wasn't just another event. It was a testament to the power of change and the resilience of the human spirit. A night to remember. The event began with a speech from Lisa, the operations director, who had been instrumental in implementing the new initiatives. Standing at the podium, her voice steady and confident, she addressed the crowd. "Good evening, everyone. Tonight, we're here to celebrate not just the success of the Emerald Heights Hotel, but the people who make it extraordinary. Over the past few months, we've faced challenges, learned difficult lessons, and grown together as a team. The Emerald Values Program is more than just a set of policies. It's a commitment to creating a culture where everyone feels valued and respected." The audience erupted into applause, the energy in the room electric. Lisa continued, "I'd like to take a moment to thank Marcus Jennings for his vision and leadership. Without his unwavering dedication to our shared values, none of this would have been possible." The spotlight shifted to Marcus, who rose from his seat and made his way to the podium. The applause grew louder, and he felt a swell of emotion as he took in the faces of the people who had worked so hard to make this vision a reality. Marcus's vision. "Thank you, Lisa," Marcus began, his voice steady but filled with warmth. "And thank you to everyone in this room. Tonight isn't about me. It's about us. It's about what we've accomplished together." He paused, glancing at the crowd. "When I started this journey, I wanted to build more than just a successful business. I wanted to create a place where people felt like they belonged. A place where respect, dignity, and kindness weren't just buzzwords, but values we lived by every day." Marcus's tone grew more serious. "But a few months ago, I was reminded that we still had work to do. That reminder came in the form of a difficult moment, one that could have divided us, but instead brought us closer. We didn't shy away from the hard truths. We faced them head-on, and because of that, we're stronger today than we've ever been." The audience listened intently, the weight of his words sinking in. The Emerald Values Program is just the beginning. What we've built here isn't perfect, and it never will be. Culture is a journey, not a destination. But I know that as long as we remain committed to these values, we'll continue to grow." He smiled, his eyes scanning the room. "Thank you for believing in this vision. Thank you for being a part of it. And thank you for showing me, once again, that change is possible when we work together." The crowd rose to their feet, the applause thunderous. Marcus stepped back, humbled and grateful for the support of his team and community. Ethan's moment. After the speeches, Marcus made his way through the crowd, stopping to chat with guests and employees. He eventually found himself face to face with Ethan Maxwell, who had been standing near the edge of the room, observing the festivities. "Ethan," Marcus said, extending his hand. "Mr. Jennings," Ethan replied, shaking his hand firmly. "This is a fantastic event. Thank you for letting me be a part of it." Marcus studied him for a moment. "You've earned your place here, Ethan. I've been watching your progress, and I have to say, I'm impressed." Ethan looked genuinely humbled. "That means a lot, sir. I've learned so much over the past few months. Not just about being a better manager, but about being a better person." Marcus nodded. "That's the real measure of success, Ethan. Not the titles we hold or the money we make, but the impact we have on the people around us." Ethan smiled, the weight of his earlier mistakes no longer as heavy. "Thank you for giving me the chance to prove myself. I won't let you down." Stories of transformation. As the evening continued, Marcus heard stories from employees and guests alike about how the Emerald Values program had touched their lives. A housekeeper shared how the new feedback system had allowed her to voice concerns without fear of retaliation. A young guest talked about how the staff's kindness had made her family stay unforgettable. A community leader praised the hotel's mentorship program, which had helped several young people secure internships in the hospitality industry. Each story reinforced Marcus's belief that the changes they had implemented were making a difference, not just within the hotel, but in the broader community. Looking forward. As the night drew to a close, Marcus stood on the balcony overlooking the city. Lisa joined him, a glass of champagne in hand. "Quite a night," she said, her voice tinged with satisfaction. "It is," Marcus agreed, "but it's just the beginning. We've built a strong foundation, but now we need to keep building." Lisa nodded. "I think we're ready. The team is committed, and the results speak for themselves." Marcus smiled, a mix of pride and determination in his expression. "This hotel is more than just a business to me. It's a legacy, and I want that legacy to be one of integrity, inclusivity, and excellence." They stood in silence for a moment, taking in the glittering city lights. Marcus felt a sense of peace, knowing that the work they had done would continue to ripple outward, creating positive change for years to come. A lasting legacy. The Emerald Heights Hotel had transformed into more than just a luxury destination. It was now a beacon of hope, a place where people from all walks of life could come together and feel valued. For Marcus Jennings, that was the ultimate reward, a legacy that extended far beyond profits and accolades. As the evening ended and the guests began to leave, Marcus walked through the now quiet lobby, feeling the weight of what they had accomplished. The road ahead would still have challenges, but for the first time in a long time, he felt truly optimistic. And as he turned off the lights in his office and closed the door, Marcus knew one thing for certain. The Emerald Heights Hotel was not just a reflection of his journey. It was a promise of what was possible when people dared to believe in change. The culmination of change. The ballroom began to empty as the event came to an end, leaving only the staff tidying up and a few lingering guests sharing quiet conversations. Marcus Jennings walked slowly back to his office, his steps echoing softly through the quiet halls. Tonight had been a victory, but he knew that true change wasn't measured by grand celebrations. It was seen in the day-to-day actions of people committed to doing better. Ethan's final test. As Marcus approached his office, he spotted Ethan near the reception desk. A middle-aged woman stood in front of him, clearly frustrated, waving a printout of her reservation. "This room doesn't have the view I requested," she exclaimed. "I specifically asked for something overlooking the park, not the street. This is unacceptable." Ethan remained calm, his posture open and empathetic. "I understand your frustration, ma'am. Let me check our system and see if there's another room available that matches your preference." The woman crossed her arms, still visibly upset. Marcus watched as Ethan carefully handled the situation, speaking respectfully and offering alternatives without becoming defensive. Eventually, the guest seemed to relax, her voice softening as she accepted Ethan's solution, a complimentary upgrade to a suite with a park view. "Thank you," she said, her tone grudgingly appreciative. "I just wanted to be heard. And that's exactly what we're here for," Ethan replied with a polite smile. As the woman walked away, Marcus approached. "Good work, Ethan. You handled that beautifully." Ethan turned, his expression one of quiet relief. "Thank you, sir. I've been working on staying calm and focused, no matter the situation." Marcus nodded. "It shows. Remember, leadership isn't about never making mistakes. It's about how you handle them and what you learn from them." Ethan's expression grew thoughtful. "I'm starting to understand that." A new chapter. The following morning, Marcus gathered his leadership team for one final meeting. The purpose wasn't to discuss policies or plans, but to reflect on their journey and prepare for the road ahead. Sitting at the head of the table, Marcus looked around at the faces of his team, people who had grown and changed alongside him. Lisa, who had been his right hand throughout the process. Ethan, who had transformed from a struggling manager to a true leader. And Caleb, who had blossomed into a confident and capable employee. "I want to thank each of you," Marcus began. "You've all shown incredible resilience and commitment over the past few months. What we've accomplished here is nothing short of extraordinary, but it's only the beginning. The real work is maintaining this culture and continuing to improve." Lisa spoke up. "Marcus, I think I speak for everyone when I say that your leadership has been the heart of this transformation. You didn't just guide us, you inspired us." The team nodded in agreement, their faces reflecting genuine admiration. Marcus smiled, humbled by their words. "Thank you. But remember, this isn't about me. It's about all of us. Together, we've created something special." The meeting ended with a renewed sense of purpose. As the team dispersed to begin their day, Marcus remained behind, gazing out the window at the bustling city below. A legacy secured. Months later, the changes at the Emerald Heights Hotel had become second nature. The Emerald Values program had expanded to Marcus's other properties, creating a ripple effect throughout the hospitality industry. The hotel had become a symbol of progress, drawing attention from the media and accolades from industry leaders. Ethan had been promoted to a regional leadership role, overseeing several properties and mentoring other managers. Caleb had been awarded Employee of the Year, his hard work and positive attitude earning him a scholarship to pursue a degree in hospitality management. Lisa continued to lead with strength and vision, her influence helping to shape the next phase of the company's growth. As for Marcus, he remained the steady heart of it all, quietly ensuring that the values he had fought so hard to instill continued to thrive. One evening, Marcus walked through the lobby of the Emerald Heights Hotel. The space was alive with the hum of conversation and laughter, a reflection of the vibrant culture they had built. He paused to admire a new plaque mounted near the entrance. The Emerald Heights Hotel, dedicated to inclusion, excellence, and respect. A place where everyone belongs. Marcus ran his fingers over the smooth brass surface, a sense of fulfillment washing over him. This was more than a hotel. It was his legacy. It stood as a reminder of how far he had come and a beacon for what others could achieve when they believed in the power of change. As he stepped outside into the cool evening air, Marcus looked up at the city lights. The journey had been long and often difficult, but it had been worth every step. The Emerald Heights Hotel was no longer just a building or a business. It was a testament to what could happen when people dared to challenge the status quo, to dream bigger, and to create a world where everyone could feel seen, heard, and valued. And as Marcus walked into the night, he carried with him a quiet certainty. The best was yet to come.